You're listening to the High Vibe Lounge podcast. I'm your host, Indigo Colton, and this show is meant to inspire, empower, uplift, and pique your curiosity about everything metaphysics and business. Let's get into the show. Today's episode is sponsored by Honeybook. This is my favorite client management platform, and it is specifically built for creatives. So if you are looking for a super wonderful, streamlined place to manage all of your clients, to organize all your communication, to build out your contracts, your invoices, your proposals, to have automated workflows that mean that you don't have to be doing all the heavy lifting yourself, and so much more, then Honeybook is definitely the platform for you. I am part of their educator program, and that means that when you click the link in the show notes of this episode, you will be able to get a 14-day free trial and save 50% off of your subscription. Thank you so much for being here today, Amy. I'm so excited that you're here with us.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I would love to just hear a little bit about you and how you got into what you're doing.
Yeah. It's a long story that I'm going to try to make as short as possible. I started my entrepreneurial journey as an acupuncturist. Before that, I was in the arts organization community, working at like contemporary arts institutions here in Minneapolis. But I've been an acupuncturist now for 4.5 years. I ran my own solo practice for several years. And then a couple years into that, I made the realization that, how do I want to put it? A lot of times people go to acupuncturists expecting you just to like fix them. Whereas really there's, as we'll get into when we talk about self-care, there's some aspect of like taking ownership over your own health. Mm-hmm. And so people were just coming to me being like, okay, well, I have like shoulder pain, fix it. And it's like, okay, well, you're doing like tons of push-ups every day. Like maybe cut down on the push-ups a little bit. Like that's hard on your shoulder. And it was hard to, help people really like find their own motivation to change their habits and their self-care and their lifestyle. And so halfway through being an acupuncturist, I decided to go and get certified in health coaching. And the program I did was really more specific, not on like health education, because I already had a master's degree in health education. This was all about the psychology of coaching. So it was a specific health coaching program for people that already had like medical licenses. So I did that health coaching program, and it was like mind blowing for me. I was like, oh, there's all these like different ways that you can actually have conversations with people to really get them to be more inspired and motivated to make changes in their lives. And I found that it greatly impacted my patients' well-being, like their adherence to like prescriptions that I was writing them and stuff like that. So I was a health coach for a little while. But I found that even that wasn't really like hitting what I really wanted to do. And in this time, I was also going through my own healing journey, as most health professionals are. And even though I had like been diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder like 10 years prior and had done so many things that like led me to acupuncture and led me to healing my physical body, I felt like there was a lot of healing that had to be done on more like the mental, emotional, spiritual levels.
Right.
And yeah, and that's when I found breathwork through my teacher, Erin Telford. And the first time I did it, it was just like mind blowing to me. Like I was feeling chi and energy move in my body in ways I had never felt it before. And it was almost distracting to me because I was like, what is going on here? And immediately after that, I was like, I need to know more about this. Like I have to do this. I want to bring this to my patients. I think it's going to be like life-changing. So over the last year, I would say I've kind of transitioned my business a little bit from more of like a physical health care provider to a little bit more of like a mental and spiritual health care provider. So right now, what I currently am doing is I still have an acupuncture practice. I actually merged my practice, my business, with another business owner. We have a full clinic. We have employees. I've been able to step back from like the day-to-day management quite as much. And like, I still see patients, but only 3 days a week. So I'm still an acupuncturist, but then in my personal business, I like to call it, I'm a wellness coach for mind, body, and business. So I specifically work with business owners, helping them kind of balance their health and their hustle and really find feeling more grounded. I feel a lot of times business owners don't feel grounded because they're like, they've got this idea here and they're working on 10 things over here. And like, there's a lot of plates being spun at the same time. And what I do is I help them kind of like hone in on what is most important, and also do any like self and personal healing that needs to happen so that they can move past any limiting beliefs that are keeping them back in their business. And also, I mean, really the limiting beliefs is like huge, but also just working through past trauma as well so that they can like shine going forwards.
It's pretty incredible. Like, I know as a business owner, I'm getting better at it, but I'm always like trying to do so many things. And it's so easy to just focus on that and really let everything else go.
Totally. And I've been there before. I mean, like currently I run 2 businesses. I recently just merged my business, and that was a lot more work than I expected it to be. I mean, I think one of the reasons why I'm so successful with my clients is because like I've been in their shoes. Like I know what it's like to almost hit burnout, but I also know what it's like to be really intentional about not letting myself actually get to burnout. So there's a fine balance there.
Yeah, definitely. When you talk about when you're helping people with the spiritual aspects of healing, what does that look like? Because I know spirituality is really different for each person. So what do you bring to kind of give a really consistent experience to your clients, no matter what their beliefs are?
One of the things that I really feel like breathwork does, when I say breathwork, let me just kind of explain it a little bit, because I know that it's a really general term, and there's a lot of like different styles of breathwork out there. There's like that like Wim Hof Iceman breathing, to like so you can go hiking in Antarctic naked, or like some crazy stuff like that. I don't really know what that's all about. And then there's like pranayama that people often do during yoga. What I do is more similar to pranayama. It's based in pranayama. It's actually really the most similar thing that you could compare it to is like Kundalini.
Okay.
Breath work. So it's different. It's a different, like you're actually doing different things. You're breathing in a different pattern, you could say, and you're breathing out of your mouth as opposed to through your nose. But the end result, like if you've ever seen someone like do Kundalini and like literally get into full Kundalini where they're like almost having, it almost looks like a seizure at times, you know, like it's so wild, like that can happen during this kind of breath work as well. So the end result can be kind of the same. And so when I'm doing breath work with people, like what it's really doing is it's strongly moving energy in the body. It's strongly opening up the energy centers, like all of the chakras and the Chinese medicine channels. It's like really opening everything up. And so when we're at our most open, that's when spirit, source, universe, God, whatever word you want to use, can like really flow through you, and you can feel connected to something bigger than yourself. And I think for so many people, they either are afraid of that or they want it but don't know how to get there. And when they feel this sensation, like just emotion washes over them. Sometimes tears come, sometimes anger can come, like all different kinds of emotions can show up, which is beautiful and great. And that's perfect in and of itself. And I find that for me personally, I feel most connected to the universe or to spirit or source when I am in that state of like being so open after breath work. And that's when I just really feel that connection to spirituality. And it's been really beautiful to like watch other people who have been hesitant about spirituality in the past to feel that thing as well. Because I mean, I grew up in a like decently religious household, but I grew up Jewish. And as I grew up, like actually aged, I realized that I didn't actually believe in a lot of the things that was taught in Judaism. There's a lot of things that I love about Judaism, but there's a lot of things about Judaism and other religions that I do not adhere to. I mean, just being a feminist and being so socially justice minded and stuff like that, I just have problems with religion in general. And so I had my time period of being, you know, like 16 to 26-year-old where I like really rebelled against religion and was just like not into it at all. And I do feel like my meditation practice, acupuncture, and breathwork specifically have allowed me to create my own relationship with spirituality instead of like having to adhere to a relationship that I was like born into.
I think that's really poignant because a lot of us feel like either whatever we grew up with or what we find, like we have to prescribe to that exactly. And there's no room for playing or for improvisation. But I
Yeah,
think
and that's
that's,
just not true. Like we can make it be whatever we want. I mean, we create our own businesses because we don't want to like be stuck in somebody else's model of what business should look like. So why are we doing that with like religion or spirituality or anything else?
there's the really beautiful moment where you said that when you're doing breath work, you're really opening up and you're totally open to the spirit or the source or universe or God. And so would that be like where you're essentially saying to the ego, like, I love you and you're great, but we're not going to listen to you right now. And you're sort of bypassing that to really open up without like those limiting beliefs or anything like
Mhm.
that the ego chatters away on.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I use breath work for personally the most is to get in touch with like my intuition or my inner mentor or like whatever you want to call it. Because just like any other business owner, like I worry that I'm making the wrong decision or I feel like there's too many options out there and don't know which road to choose. I do that just as much as anybody else. And the difference is that I don't let that paralyze me and I take action using my tools. So whether it's meditation, pulling tarot cards, or doing breath work, like do one of those things to really ground, really center, and really tune in to that like more like loving, abundant, be like, letting that I'm giving the ego time and space to have those worries. And then I'm saying like, okay, now you go sit in the corner and I'm going to actually like figure out what to do now and not let you just like paralyze me into doing nothing.
That's so hard to do. I
Yeah.
feel like it's so does that something with breath work that kind of it helps it get easier? Like it makes it a little bit of an easier process.
It makes it easier to take action
Mhm.
and not be paralyzed because you really do get a lot of clarity with breath work. But no, I still get that ego. Like I still get that just as much as anybody else. No matter how much breath work I do, I am human, and that little voice and that programming that we all grew up with like still shows up in my ear. It does make it easier to be like, hey, I hear you, but I'm not going to listen to you right now. But it
Right.
still shows up just as much as it ever did before. And I think that that's just part of the human experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
Have you tried breath work before?
I did. I did your new moon breath work, which was
Do you want to share your
the first.
experience at all?
Yeah, so I was actually really scared because when I, like 10 years ago, my dad and I went to a yoga class and the teacher had us start doing the breath of fire. And
Mhm.
that's the only experience I'd had before with breath work. And I was fine, but my dad like coughed, like he was doing it and he started coughing and he couldn't stop coughing. And it was really scary. So I was like, I'm really excited. And I love Amy, so I want to try it, but I don't want to cough for like 2 hours. But it was really beautiful and it was not at all what I expected. I was expecting it to be something where it's like you sit down and you're like in lotus or half lotus and you're like it's quiet and you're sitting and you're breathing because that's what it was like in that yoga class. But it was like, no, like here's awesome music and we're talking and like you're laying down on your bed and you're fully supported. And I did it when it was like totally dark in my room. So it was just like I wasn't aware of my body. And that was really incredible. And I just felt kind of like I was vibrating,
Yeah.
which was insane, but
Yeah.
awesome.
I mean, that's kind of what I talk about. Like when the first time I ever did it, like that vibration
Mhm.
was so wild to me because I was feeling it in specific acupuncture channels. I was like, why do I feel it in my like pinkies, but not in my thumbs? And I feel it going all the way up, like the ulnar aspect of my arm into my armpit. And like, that's the heart channel. And this work is all about opening the heart. And I was like, so into it, but I was also getting so like academic about it in my head the first time I was doing that was because it was blowing my mind so much. That my first experience was like so different than maybe other people's first experience. But it was like, it's true. Like you feel sensation in your body that you're not expecting. And for some people, it's welcome. And for some people, it's not. Like I have a freebie on my page that's like a free intro course to breathwork. Basically, it's like a 7 days of breathwork, and you get an email from me every day, and there's like a really short little lesson and a short journaling prompt, and then a playlist for like a mini breathwork session, like a 3-song session, whereas like private sessions with me are more like 10 or 12 songs. And I've gotten so much feedback, both positive and negative, from people, because people love it, but there are some people that are like, holy crap, what am I feeling? This is totally freaking me out. I think I'm going to have an anxiety attack. You know, there are some people that are more willing to surrender to the breath, to surrender to their body, and to surrender to the universe. And there are other people, and this is not a judgment call. This is not like one is better than the other. This is just how people react to it. Other people have a harder time letting go. They tend to literally, when they're doing the breath work, like clench their hands and be unable to like open them and relax them, because they are literally holding on to control so tightly and afraid to just release into it. And those people tend to email me and be like, I hated that. They're like, I really didn't like that. And be like, wow, that means you probably need it.
Yeah. When you're doing your own self-care, breath work is a regular piece of that, of your overall practice.
Yeah. I mean, I don't do it every day. Like when I did that 7-day breathwork challenge, I was like, well, I'm doing it along with y'all because this is going to be my first day, like doing it 7 days in a row. And I'm interested to see what happens. I would say that at least once a week, I do like a short, that like sort of 10-12 minute breathwork practice anytime that I'm feeling lost in my business or feeling at a crossroads and not sure which way to turn. I always do breath work then, because it always gives me the clarity that I'm looking for. And then I work with my teacher. Like I do one-on-one sessions where I'm the patient with other breathwork practitioners. You know, sometimes my teacher, Erin, sometimes with other friends of mine that I've done the trainings with, that I've like been students with, and we'll like practice on each other and whatnot. And I mean, the beautiful thing about breathwork is you can totally just like do it on your own. You could do like a full like 40-minute session that you would normally do with me. You could do it on your own. You could make your own playlist. Like there's nothing stopping you from doing that. But there's something to be said for having somebody witness, having somebody support. I've heard many times before, like that they did the 7-day and things felt kind of scary. You know, like I said, they get a little anxious about it. And then they'll do my like new moon one that you did.
Yeah.
And because I'm there, like on the line, like talking them through it. And they're like, yeah, you said exactly what I needed to hear at exactly the right moment to let me either like totally release into it, or to cry, or to yell or scream, or like whatever they needed to do in that moment. And they're like, yeah, it made a huge difference because I felt more supported.
So is that weird then if you're doing it yourself, to yourself? Like, do you talk out loud to yourself? Like, I'm just really curious what that looks
like. I mean, like when I do my own breath work, it's like that sort of 3-song, like
right.
Just that like short little thing. When I feel like I need a real session, I get on Erin's calendar, or I call up one of my friends and be like, hey, let's do a trade. Like I definitely have somebody else supporting me.
And I think that's so important. And it sounds like with breathwork, but also with other aspects of kind of just doing our own businesses, or of learning how to really implement self-care. And I mean, even with just like, I feel like piecing together our own spirituality, like we touched on a little bit before, is just having a community and a network that can support us and say like, you're not crazy, like you can do this. And I just think it's really beautiful.
It is. And there's something really healing about having people be witness. Yeah. I don't even know if I can like really explain it, but like, for instance, I work with a coach, Barbara Aroshina, from Be With Coaching.
Yeah.
It's almost like more like a therapist than a coach, but it's like an emotional wellness coach. So I do work with her, and she shared a practice with me recently that I'm gonna try doing soon. And it's about releasing anger, because I'm human and I have things that I get angry about too, and like childhood shit. And part of this practice is that someone has to go with you while you like do this whole thing. And the practice itself, the thing, doesn't scare me. But I'm like, oh my God, bringing someone along and having them like witness all of it. Like I totally believe and I totally understand that that's where some of like the healing and the importance lies, but it's still scary. It's scary to be vulnerable. It's scary to like open up. You know, it's like one thing to like, sometimes we're even afraid to like open up to ourselves. Like when we, you know, don't journal or don't meditate, a lot of times it's because we're like lying to ourselves about how we're actually doing. Like we don't actually want to sit down in our bodies and be like, okay, but really, how are you really right now? You know? And so then to have somebody else like to actually show up and state how you are really to somebody else is even scarier, but super helpful, important.
Yeah. And I feel like it's also just finding people who can understand too. Like they might not, like whoever you bring with you might not understand why you're doing what you're doing or the emotional piece behind it, but they understand that that support for you is important.
Yeah.
And so they understand that that being there, I mean, that would be something that they're showing up for you in a way that can really allow you to experience whatever it is you need to experience.
Exactly. I mean, it's similar to why sometimes like why having a coach can be like so important. And I'm not talking about like a coach that is more of a consultant that's like telling you how to fix something. I'm just saying like a coach that's really just to sit there, hold space for you, reflect back to you what they're hearing, and for you to like see things from their eyes to be like, oh, wow, wait, maybe it is like this, instead of just like when you chat with your best friend and you're like going off about this or that problem. And they're like, well, have you tried this? And have you tried this? And you're like, I don't necessarily want to fix it. I just want to like vent right now. You know, it's that same sort of thing. You just need to like vent, like express and have somebody witness that.
Yeah, it's a total game changer.
Yeah.
And that's, I wish it was something that we're taught as kids. Because I feel like at least like with my friends who aren't necessarily business owners or they're not, you know, we don't approach spirituality in the same way or kind of thing. It's like, I want to fix their problem. Like that's just the instinct. And that's how it's been my whole life. And I feel like that's how everybody is. So then we never feel like we're really being heard, when really, like when I call up my friend and I'm like, oh my God, this just happened. Like we just want that space. We just want someone to say that sucks. And I hear you.
Completely.
And so I would love to hear, because we've kind of touched on different tools that you have for self-care and a little bit of what your spirituality looks like, but I'd love to know, what would you normally do in a day to either practice your spirituality or really make sure that you're implementing self-care?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it sounds lame, but like the number one thing that I do when it comes to self-care, like the most important number one thing I do is that I try to get enough sleep. And for me, enough sleep is a minimum of 7.5 hours, but preferably 8 hours. My body doesn't really need more than 8 hours. I'll like naturally wake up on my own after 8 hours of sleep. But so I usually get up between 6 and 7:30 in the morning. So I'm usually in bed by like 10 or 11 at night. 11 is like the latest. I tried staying up till midnight recently and it was an utter failure. I was like so boring at the party. But so sleep is really hugely important to me. I know so many entrepreneurs that like burn the midnight oil and are constantly like laptops open till like midnight, 1, even later, or like will wake up in the middle of the night with a little bit of insomnia. And instead of reading a book or just like laying in bed and like trying to fall back to sleep, they'll like open their laptop. And I got to say that that's like the number one thing that from a practitioner standpoint, I'm going to tell you, don't do it. Like sleep is literally the biggest thing when it comes to healing from adrenal fatigue. And, you know, we can say like that we're burnt out, but really what burnt out means is that our adrenals are like exhausted and can't create the hormones that they need anymore. And so then we rely on caffeine and coffee to like stimulate fake hormones or like, you know, replace them. But so hugely the biggest thing that you can do to like prevent adrenal fatigue or to like, if you are adrenal fatigue, like you need sleep. Sleep is the number one thing. So It sounds boring. It sounds basic, but it is my priority. I would say going from that though, I always do some sort of like meditation or prayer or journaling in the morning. It doesn't always look the same. You know, like lately I've been really into like candle magic. So I'll have 7-day candles that I'll like done a spell with. And so every morning I'll sit with the candle for a while and maybe recite gratitude, like, you know, kind of think about what I'm grateful for in relation to whatever that spell is or that candle is about. Sometimes I'll just sit at my altar and do meditation, either guided with like Headspace or just set a timer for like 15-20 minutes. Sometimes I pull a tarot card of the day. Doesn't happen every day, but maybe 4 or 5 days out of the week, I'll pull a tarot card for the day. One thing that I don't do that is in my own personal like goals for my self-care is to be a little bit more physically active in the morning. I live in Minnesota and it is cold as balls. And in the summertime, I consistently wake up pretty early and take my dog for like a 20, 30, 40-minute walk in the morning. And I feel so good when I do it. Like it just brightens my spirit and it makes my body feel good. But it's cold out and it's snowy out and the sidewalks aren't really well shoveled. You know, it's just like there's so many obstacles there. And so I would love to do a little bit more like stretching or yoga in the morning, but that doesn't really happen very often. And so other things I do are I go to the gym. So I work out indoors in a boring gym environment right now when it's winter. And then I like a lot of alone time. I am married. I live with my husband. And so I don't really have that much alone time when you like live with another person in that way. Right. But this room right here is my office. This is like my space. In that corner is my altar. In that corner is like another kind of makeshift altar. You know, like this is my space to like do everything. I can put my yoga mat behind me. So I'll often, you know, if my husband's like watching TV at night, I'll come up here and like read a book, or I'll come up here and pull some tarot cards or do something just to have my own time. Because for me, like a big part of my self-care is just having alone time. Like I'm an introvert and I need that refueling time.
Think of like your own little sanctuary within your house. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, I mean, other things I kind of do are I go get acupuncture myself because I work at an acupuncture clinic and it's pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
I like to go get my nails done, you know, like little things like that just like make me feel good and feel alive and feel like love for myself. I'll go out for dinner with my girlfriends. I'll do all those little things. And I love spending time outdoors. Like really, it's actually quite hard for me to be living here in Minnesota because one of the things that is a really big part of my spirituality is like connecting with nature and like being surrounded by huge trees or by the Mississippi River or being, you know, like that's huge for me. And I just don't get it this time of year.
Well, it sounds like, and it feels like it's really like you have this toolbox that you've put together. And then depending on how you're feeling or what you need, you're picking out the different tools that are going to help you in that moment. So it's really fluid. It's not just like every morning I do the same 5 things and every night I do the same 5 things and I like push through.
And I've tried that before. Like I've done the miracle morning. I've had like a more regimented routine before and it's not bad. I just, if you've taken like the Gretchen Rubin, like 4 tendencies, you know, quiz, I'm a rebel. So it'd be one thing if I was just an upholder, I'd be like, I would do the same thing every day and it would be fine. Or if I was a questioner, I would like have the research of like, what is the best thing to do? And I would do it. But I'm a rebel and I just fly by the seat of my pants whenever I want.
Yeah. So even if you put the structure in place and you know it's for you, you're going to rebel against it.
Absolutely.
I think that's so good. Like to know yourself in that way, because it can be challenging if it's like, I know one thing I've run into, and especially when I got burnt out at the beginning of last year, was I was trying to do everything like quote unquote self-care that everybody else was saying, like, this is how you should do it. But I wasn't in touch with myself enough to know, like, is this going to actually work for me or is this going to make it worse?
Well, and one of the big things also is I feel like when that sort of when that's the way that you're doing your self-care, then it's like one big to-do list that you're like, oh, and I have to do this today, and I have to pull a tarot card today, and like, oh my God, I'm exhausted, but like I have to do my meditation.
Yeah.
And that's not actually self-care, that's like self-flagellation, And I think another big part of my self-care is something that took a really long time to learn, but it's just having 110% self-compassion. Like, I do not beat myself up if I have a rough morning and I don't end up sitting in my meditation cushion, or I don't journal, or I don't pull a card. And then later that day I realized like, oh, I had a shitty day and I didn't do any self-care today. And that's probably why I had a shitty day. But I like, don't beat myself up about it. I'm just like, you're like, wow, that sucks. I'm sorry that happened to you, And then like, I just do something different the next day. And that took a long time to like get to that point of not being like feeling bad that I didn't do the things that I know are good for me, or feeling like I'm failing as a health practitioner because like, I should be like walking my talk, and I am walking my talk, but like I have bad days just like everybody else. So it's like, I'm not gonna beat myself up about it. And for me, it's like, I have been doing this a long time. Like, I have been in a healthcare role, whether it's as a student, as a practitioner, or even beforehand when I was like working in herb shops. Like, I have been doing this for over 10 years now. So I've built a big toolbox up. And so like, there are times where like I come across a tool that I forget that I even knew about. And it's like Christmas Day all over again. I'm like, oh, I get to do this thing that I forgot that I love doing. And it's been on the back burner for the last like 3 years or whatever.
Yeah. And that's awesome. And I think that's so key too, is it's not going to be like an overnight thing. It's not just like, if I make this list of 10 things and I do those 10 things, then I'm magically going to be like, I'm going to feel amazing and my life is going to be perfect.
Totally. I think that's 100% true.
So if there are any people listening or watching who are, say, more towards the beginning of their journey with self-care and trying to sort of figure out what tools might work for them, what advice would you give them?
Like, be curious, experiment, like try a bunch of stuff. Like, it's fine to do like what you did, where you're just trying all these other things that other people told you to do, but you don't have to like commit to doing it forever, or even necessarily commit to doing it for 30 days. Like, do it for a couple days. And if you hate doing it those couple of days, stop doing it. Like, that's okay. You don't have to do it just because like somebody else, just because I said that it was great doesn't mean that you're going to think it's great. So I would say be curious, experiment, and then also tune in with what's working. So just having some sort of reflection, whether it's at the end of the night, having a practice where you're just like, kind of go over your day and be like, wow, today was really great. Like, why do I think today was so great? Like, what did I do today to support myself? Or if it's a journaling practice, or even talking with like a friend or a partner in the evening about your days. Like, as long as you can, it's great to experiment, but you want to actually then be in tune enough to know like which experiments were successful and which experiments were failures, because failures are great because you're going to learn from them. But yeah.
That's all. Like, even being in like a practice and going through this, I think that's a really great reminder too, is it's just trying things out, seeing what feels good, and then being able to adjust from there.
Totally. Like, the adjustment is huge, and like feeling like, maybe you try seated meditation and you're like, yeah, I actually kind of liked it, but my back was killing me the whole time and it was distracting me. So lay down. Like, who cares? Like, you don't have to sit. Lay down. Like, find a reclining chair that feels more comfortable for you. Like, find whatever piece of furniture feels the most comfortable. Like, you don't have to do it just the way that somebody on Pinterest is doing it, or somebody on the way on Instagram is doing it. Like, make it your own.
Makes it really fun. Because then I keep thinking of like you putting together your own spirituality and putting together this toolbox. And I think all of us can do that, and we can just approach it from a place of like experimentation and fun, And like you were saying, like not beating ourselves up. Like if you don't drink that green juice or don't use the body brush, like it's okay. And it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm actually going to switch up my meditation practice, like from hearing you talk about this, because I do it. I use the Headspace app as well, which I love, but I keep doing it sitting on the floor with my back up against my bed. And like when you said, oh, but my back hurts, I was like, wait, my back does hurt every time I do it. So, I mean, it's always just changing little things.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Headspace meditation.
It's
That like
awesome.
his voice is just like butter.
It's so smooth. Like I have other guided meditations on my phone, but since I downloaded the app, I'm like, I don't even think about them.
Yeah. For anyone listening, if you are not familiar with Headspace, Andy, who is the guy that is like he used to be a monk or something like that. He's the one that does all the meditations, and they have like a free 30-day, 10-day, something like that trial. So you absolutely should check it out because it's so good.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll put the link to try it out down below so you guys can find it. Speaking of, I guess, kind of the app, are there any other specific tools or specific things that you use that you would recommend to people to try out with their experimentations?
That's a good question. I have to think about that for a second. There's an app that I really like. My phone's in the other room. I think it's called Insight Timer. So basically it's a timer, just like you would have on your phone already, but it has like singing bowls, like the meditation bowls as the like sounds, and you can alter it really well. So like I have a couple different presets where like one is like a 20-minute meditation, but a bell rings like 10 minutes through. So like when you know that you're like halfway through. Or I did one for a while where I was doing a 15-minute meditation, but it was kind of 3 different kinds of meditation. And so every 5 minutes I had it set for a bell to ring. So the first 5 minutes I did just a seated, just like grounding visualization. The second 5 minutes I did a chakra clearing visualization. And then the third 5 minutes I did mantra work. And this was like an experiment. Like I'm not still doing that exact protocol,
Right.
but I did it for a couple of weeks because it felt really good. And then it started feeling like a chore. So I stopped doing it. So that was that. I still use that app a lot though, that timer app. It's really great to like not have like birds chirping at the end of your meditation or like some terrible, Apple sound. I'm trying to think of what other apps or tools. I mean, I use Spotify a lot to make awesome playlists for breathwork. That's the only thing that's coming to my head for like when it comes to apps. I've honestly, well, this is like kind of related, but kind of not related. And I'm sure you already know about this one, and maybe all of your listeners already know about this one, but I only recently came across the Chrome extension that blocks your Facebook feed.
The newsfeed eradicator.
Oh my God, that is self-care for me. Like that has been a game changer and a total self-care thing. So like, I love that I can get into my groups and get into my notifications and my messages, but I do not have to like get sucked into scrolling on Facebook. And I've totally taken Facebook off of my phone and like even like logged off on the Safari browser or whatever. And I don't know my password anymore. So like I have literally no way to go on a Facebook feed. And for me, that is hugely self-care.
Yeah. And I love too that they put like an inspirational quote. Yeah. So instead of it's like you get sucked into like everything that everyone's posting and it's just like information overload. It's like you have your notifications, you have all your things that you're a part of that you want to look at. And then it's like, here's a really nice thing to like look at before you actually dig into whatever you went to Facebook for.
Totally. There's another app that I'm just thinking about right now, and I'm going to have to, I don't remember the name, so you're going to have to check the show notes because I will look for it later and I will tell Indigo, but it's this interesting app that helps you label your feeling. And I know that sounds weird. Like really, you can't just like know what you're feeling, but if you, all of you listening, stopped what you're doing for a second and asked yourself, like, how am I feeling right now? Like, what word would I put to it? It's way harder than you think to actually be in touch with your feelings sometimes. And the way that this app works is it's kind of this, it's beautifully designed first off. And there's like this like color gradient. And so it just helps you first kind of decide, are you more like agitated versus calm, and then like excited. You know, it's this whole different matrix basically, but it's super interesting, super helpful. And I use it with my clients sometimes when we're like working on things to help them actually name a feeling. And I know it sounds super weird, but it's actually really helpful.
No, that sounds awesome. It's hard. It's like I joined a course the other day, and some of the pre-homework is like keep track of your emotions, like just the general ones that you're feeling throughout the day. And I was like, oh, that's easy. And then today I went to do it and I was like, what am I feeling? Like I'm working, but like, am I happy to be working? Am I anxious? Like it was much more difficult than I'd ever thought it would be. I was like, this is a piece of cake. This is the easiest pre-homework ever.
Oh my God, you're going to love using this app for the rest of this course then.
That app sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's really good.
And I'm excited to check it out.
Yeah, and if you want to learn more, I have that free 7-day breathwork challenge listed right on the homepage of my website. And it's literally like the most popular opt-in. I have people have been loving it, and it's totally free, accessible way to like incorporate a little bit more self-care into your day. And yeah, it's pretty great.
I know I'm probably going to go download it as soon as we finish recording.
Yay.
And then if there's any way that you, like if someone wants to work with you, what is the best way that they can do that right now?
Yeah, so I have a couple different options. One of my favorite ways that people can work with me is actually something that I just launched recently, and it's called Monthly Medicine. And it's actually like the most affordable way that people can work with me right now. What it is a monthly self-care membership. So for $18 a month, you get on the first of every month, you get an email from me with a MP3 recording of me kind of doing like a little mini-sode podcast where it's like a lesson of the month on a specific topic that will change every month. And then a full-length breathwork audio recording. And then also usually a worksheet. So sometimes it might be like a tarot spread. It might be some journaling prompts. It might be a worksheet. So it kind of varies every month. And some months are a little bit more astrologically based. So it could be like something that you want to do closer to the full moon or closer to the new moon, or maybe it's a retrograde focus one. But there's also topics that we're going into that have nothing to do with the moons. Like the topic that we did for January is actually all about what lies beneath. And that what we kind of went into was working at the foundational levels of our energy system and the foundational levels of our emotions, and understanding that we really need to work on those foundations before we can work on the shiny stuff up top. And so, yeah, it's super powerful. It's super affordable. And there's also a private Facebook community, because I found that so many people have such wild and intense experiences with breathwork that I wanted to create a safe space for people to share with each other, for them to ask me questions about breathwork, that I could give them some like direct and personal time to answer, and then also a space that I can do some Facebook lives to do Q&As and stuff with them. So it's called Monthly Medicine, and you can find it on my website, and it's my favorite way to work with people.
That sounds incredible.
Thanks.
And I love it. And I'll definitely put a link to all of that down below. So if you love Amy and you love what she's talked about, definitely go check it out. Thank you so much, Amy, for being on the show. If you want to reach out to Amy or learn more about breathwork and the free challenge that we talked about in this episode, you can do so over at Instagram, where you can find Amy at Amy Kuretsky, Kurettsky. And there you have it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the High Vibe Lounge podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, there's nothing that would make me happier than if you would leave us a rating and review on iTunes, and make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcast to make sure that you never miss an upcoming episode. And if you're looking for show notes and resources that were mentioned in this episode, you can go to indigocolton.com/podcast. And I will see you in the next episode. Have a great day.